Hello everybody, Assalamu alaikum. Okay, so let's continue with our review. Okay, so we were in this chapter, advantages and disadvantages of large and small farms. So we already discussed that there are some methods by which we can identify whether a farm is small or large. So like it can be turnover, mm, like high turnover or high sales or high revenue will reflect that the farm is a large one. And then a large number of employees will also it's a characteristic of large farm. And if a huge amount of capital is employed, then you can also say it's a large farm. And if they are low, you can say that this is a small farm. Okay. So there are both good side and bad side for a small farm and large farm. So let's talk about the advantages of small farms. So one of the main advantage is flexibility. So small farms are so small that they can easily change. They can quickly change. Suppose think about like they can instantly take a decision, whereas it's very difficult for a large farm to take decision. Okay. Suppose a small firm, they're selling ice cream. Okay, but tomorrow they can start selling yeah, French fries or burgers. Okay, so they can quickly change. Okay, based on the situation of the market, they can quickly change. But for a large firm, it's very difficult. The decision making involves a huge amount of time because they cannot quickly take decision. They have to go through an extensive process of decision making to make any kind of change. But a small farm, they don't need to ask many people. They just quickly take the decision and do it. Okay, so next is personal services. So small for a small farm, it's very much possible to provide small personal services. Okay, like home delivery or yeah, giving a feeling to the customer that they are important for the business. Okay, so it's possible for a small farm. But for a large firm, providing personal service to the customer is quite impossible because they have so many customers, and if they start providing personal services, it will be a very difficult thing, and a huge amount of resources are required. So, and it's almost impossible. Next is lower wages. So for a small firm, usually they need to pay a lower amount of wages, whereas the large firm need to pay a lot. Okay, because they are large and they need to come up. They need to maintain a standard, and they need to provide a standard amount of wages. Okay, whereas small firms who does not have any trade union, so they can easily come up with low wage. Then better communication. Um, so there are only few employees involved in a small farm, so its communication is quite easy, and quickly it can be transferred from one employee to another, from supervisor to um, the employees or to subordinates. Next, we have innovation. So small farms they lack resources, they lack money or finance, but one thing is very surprising that they're quite innovative. Okay, so they can instantly take risk and come up with new things. Okay, whereas large firms have money, but it takes time to take decision, and innovation is not so easy for them. Okay. So, however, there are some disadvantages for the small farms as well. Higher cost. A small farm can't exploit economies of scale because their output is small. Okay. But large farm can easily do that. Then lack of finance, we discussed that. Yeah, there's a small farm, so on maybe one or two or very small number of owners involved, so they cannot gather huge amount of finance, and also banks and other financial institutes don't find it as a good investment because it's quite risky to invest in a small farm. Then next is difficulties attracting right staff. As we already discussed, that the wages are quite low, so it's good for the farm. The cost of production is will fall, but it's difficult to attract the right staff with this low salary or wage. Next, we have vulnerability. So they're very vulnerable, the small farms. So it's difficult for them to survive. Okay. So suppose if if the large farm is selling at a very low price, then the large farm can survive. But for a low small farm, they will lose all the customers and they may not be able to survive. Okay. Next, we have advantages of large farms, which are we find that it's quite similar to the disadvantages of the small farm. Okay, so small farm failed to achieve economies of scale, but they're managing to achieve economies of scale. These large farms are dominant in the market because they're on large farm. They can they have a good profile and image on the eyes of the customers. And then large scale contracts can only be afforded by the large firms. Uh, the small firms can't afford it. Okay? They don't have the resources to take large firms, but yeah, the large contracts. But large firms have all the resources to take and go for large contracts. And then, however, there are some disadvantages of large farm. They're too bureaucratic, so that means too much resources are used in the decision making process. So it will make communication very difficult, and yeah, communication will take much time. Okay, next, coordination and control. So they will be able to coordinate the large firms. It's difficult for them to coordinate and control, okay, because there's so many employees, and that's why the gap between the manager and employee is there, and it leads to a lack of coordination and difficult to control, and cost may even rise because of this. Poor motivation. So again, this gap between the supervisor and the employees leads to poor motivation. They feel alienated. Okay, so as a result, they are poorly motivated. Okay, then chapter 20. Let's move to that. We have monopoly. Okay, so in a competitive market, we already discussed that there are large number of sellers and large number of buyers. But here in monopoly, there might be large number of buyer, but the seller is only one. Okay, so there is only one large seller who is dominating the whole market. Maybe there are a small, insignificant amount of sellers in the market, but only one farm is dominating. Okay, so that's monopoly. So there are some of the common features of monopoly and barriers to entry. So we have barriers to entry. That means monopoly tries to come up with lots of barriers so that new farm find it difficult to enter. Okay, so that's why they can when there is no competition, they will be easily able to compete in the market. Okay, so yeah, okay, we had a good morning from Gulijan and Oishi. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Okay, so let me know if you're facing any problem. Okay, thank you. Okay, so let's continue. Legal barriers. Okay, so there are also legal barriers. Sometimes government allows firms to dominate the market and remain as the only one seller. Okay, legally sometimes it's possible. Okay, suppose some patent is a way to become monopoly because patent means like you can yeah, because innovation, like you are coming up with a new technology, so it takes huge amount of time when you're coming up with this new technology because it takes huge amount of money and time to come up with research and development for a new technology. So when you're inventing something new, you want to do business with it, so you can do patent. That means you will if any other people wants to use this innovation, then they need to pay you, then they can use this technology. So patent is another way by which your firm can legally become the monopoly. Then economies of scale. So large monopoly is large firms, and they're dominating the market, and there are the only one seller, right? So there, everyone is ordering to the large farm, so almost everybody. So it will help them to achieve economies of scale. That means they will be able to produce in large quantity and reduce the average cost. Next, we have marketing barrier. Monopoly also try to come up with marketing barrier. Okay, so they usually have strong brand names, and what they do, they try to advertise and try to make their brand even more dominant, and so it's very difficult for the new entrants or the new firms to make a position in the market. Okay, because they're already very strong. Okay, so that's another features of um, monopoly. Okay, and these cost barrier, legal barrier, economies of scale, and marketing barrier are example of barriers to entry. Okay, so next features is unique product. Okay, so why monopoly is the only one seller? One of the main reason is their product is so unique. Okay, so they try to make their product unique so that the competition stays away from them. Okay, because they cannot compete because their product is so unique, no one can copy in the short run. Okay, like think about iPhone. Okay, currently the iPhone is struggling, I would say, but if you see maybe 5 years back, they were quite unique. Or maybe 10 years back, they were very unique. Okay, so they used to come up with the new technology always, and maybe they will. It was very. They came up with the iOS, which is a unique operating system. They came up with unique features like maybe processor, camera, and lots of other features are there. They were quite unique. So what happened that as a result, they became somewhat a monopoly because if you want to use iOS, on yeah, Apple is Apple is the only option, right? But later on, you'll find that yeah, their uniqueness is not so much nowadays. So that's why they are losing. Okay, there are other mobile companies who are providing similar kind of mobile phone like iPhone. Android is also becoming very similar to iOS. Okay, so they're losing their uniqueness. Okay, so that's why you cannot call iPhone a monopoly anymore. Okay. Okay. Then next is control over price. So control over price is like If you think about the competitive market, what happens that price is determined by the demand and supply. So the interaction of demand and supply is determining the price. So what happens that if you uh, if you can consider this price, okay, so what happens that in a monopoly try to fix this price, okay, because there are no seller and they try to take the advantage. Lack of competition gives the power to the monopoly to set the price. Okay, so is it good or bad monopoly? Okay, so we have some good side and some bad side as well. Okay, let's go through the advantages. There are more research and development. So because they're large firms and they can afford this research and development. Okay, so that's why this is a advantageous for the monopoly, and disadvantages when flows to the customers as well, because as they're spending on research and development, government will have customers will have access to high quality goods and services. Okay. Next, we have economies of scale. So, economies of scale will help the farm to reduce their average cost. So, this fall in cost of production will enable the farm to sell at a lower price. Okay, so ultimately the customer may get advantage. Then natural monopolies. So there are some situation where a monopoly is the best option. Like think about mm, what maybe water supply. So if the government gave responsibility of the water supply to what firm. Okay, in our country it's what Wasa. Okay, so uh, when they're giving it to one farm, they will be able to use economies of scale. And otherwise, if there were multiple farm, that the number of customers would have decreased, and they won't be may not be able to achieve economies of scale. So that's another yeah, thing. Advantages. Sometimes natural monopoly is a good situation, which helps them to exploit economies of scale and restrict wastages. Okay, next is international competitiveness. So a large firm are very powerful. They can achieve economies of scale and everything. So they will be able to sell at a lower price as well. So this we may provide a international competitiveness. That means they will be able to sell to foreign countries at a lower price. Okay, so export may increase, and this farm will become very popular worldwide. Okay, so next there are, however, there are some disadvantages as well. The main disadvantages like high price. Okay, so they're the only one seller, so they often charge a very high price. Okay, so ultimately the customers suffer with this high price because there is only one seller and the customers they don't have any options, so they need to go to the monopoly and purchase from them and end up paying higher prices. Next, we have restricted choices. Okay, so there are no competition, so you don't have much options. So lack of choice is a big problem, and even the monopoly is not coming out with variety because it's not required because they're already dominating. Coming up with choices is a good way in a competitive market to survive the competition. But for monopoly, it's optional. They don't need. They are not it's not necessary for them to come up with options. Then lack of innovation. So monopoly can afford innovation, but they don't have the urge, right? Because what's the point of coming up with new thing? Customers are already getting the product from them, and they don't have any competition. So innovation is mostly required for competitive market where they need to come up with new things so that they can attract customers or lure away customers from the competitors. But here they don't need to monopolize this. have so much pressure to come up with innovation. Okay, then they're quite inefficient. Okay, because monopoly is earning a huge amount of profit already by charging higher prices. So they don't need to reduce their cost to earn profit, because they can charge whatever they want. So what's happening that they don't have the pressure to reduce the cost because they're already earning profit. But you think of the competitive market, all the firms are trying to reduce their cost so that they can at least get a good amount of profit. So that's the way. If you the increasing the gap between the selling price and cost gives you the profit, right? But the monopolies are already earning huge amount of profit, so they don't have the pressure or urge to reduce the cost. So it makes them very inefficient. Okay, so okay, so end of monopoly. I think we still have time. Let's start the next chapter. Let me know if I'm going too fast. Okay. We have lots of other chapters to cover, and we need to solve question paper as well. Okay, so that's why I'm going a bit fast, maybe. So let me know if you're facing any problem with any particular topic. Okay, so next, oligopoly. So in oligopoly, there are few sellers, right? Few sellers are dominating the market. Okay, so the number of seller depends on the size of the market. So like it can be two or three or maybe four or five. It depends on the size of the market. Okay, so for a small farm, two or three is can be considered as oligopoly. Okay, so let's go through some of the features. The features are some of them are very similar to the monopoly. Say that barriers to entry we already discussed. Okay, they try to come up with barrier to entry oligopoly. Okay, then okay, this is a similarity, but let's go to the other one, like interdependency. Okay, so one farm is dependent on other farm. See what's happening that if one farm reduces price, then other farms will have to reduce the price as well, because the market is so competitive that if you don't reduce the price, then you may become it may become problematic. Like your customers may if may leave you because your competitor is reducing price, and if you don't reduce the price, then probably you lose customers. So that's the problem. So that's what the situation is known as interdependency. Okay, then the price rigidity. Okay, so uh, oligopoly can set price, they can control price maybe, but they don't go for it because they avoid price war. Because like we already discussed, that they're so interdependent that if they go for a price war, then both farms will suffer. Okay, because if you reduce your price, your profit will fall, and the other farms will also follow you and come out with lower price. Okay. So instead of doing that, one good idea is to stick with the price. Okay, so that will help you to earn profit by charging higher price. Okay, so that's why they try to be rigid. They try to keep the prices same. Next is non-price competition. Non-price competition means that yeah, what's happening there? Like we already discussed that that they don't want to go for this oligopolies don't want to go for what uh, price competition. So that's why they go for non-price competition. They try to come up with unique features. They try to make their products unique. Come up with offers like coupon, loyalty card, free offers, branding in the market. So this all makes their product unique to the customer. So and seems better to the customer. So yeah, this may lead to a success of in the market, but not what price competition. Next, we have economies of scale. And that's similar to the monopoly. That it helps them to achieve economies of scale because there are only few sellers, so they can afford to serve a huge amount of suppliers. Sorry, customers. Okay. Okay, and there's something called collision. Okay, collision. See that it's quite interesting that in some oligopolistic market, collision may take place. This is where the dominant firms in the industry set up agreements to restrict competition. In many countries, collusion is illegal because it harms the consumers. Okay, because what's happening, the collusion, like it's like an informal agreement between the firms in the market. So if they come up with this kind of agreements, what will happen? Even if there are small amount of competition, it will become a zero competition if they come up with collusion. Say for example, market sharing. Market sharing is like there were two or three farms in the market, but if they share the market, suppose one is selling in the northern side of the city, another one is selling in the southern side of the city. So if they share the market in this way, then what will happen? Even if there are two farms, they were supposed to compete with each other, but they're sharing the market, and only a particular product, particular seller will be available in a particular place. So you'll see that there won't be any competition because the farms are in different part of the city. Okay, so they are not directly competing in a particular place. So that's an example of collusion, where they share the market and reduce the competition. Okay, next is price fixing. They can come up with a yeah, agreement that okay, let's increase the price and stick with it. We won't be able to reduce the price. Okay, and that's the agreement. Okay. So what's happening? So it was supposed to be set by the demand and supply, but instead of that, if they go for a collusion, they can easily fix the price, and customers will end up paying more. Next, restricting output. Okay, so as you can see, if there are pollution, then they don't need to produce in large quantity. Small production may lead to good amount of profit as well. So they will take this opportunity, and the customers will suffer. Okay. Okay, so that's end for the class is over for today. Okay, so we will continue the next lesson, inshallah. Thank you.